Hello, friends. Hello. Welcome to the first episode of Special Features Workshopping Humanity. Number one, I introduced this incorrectly in the show. At the time, I figured we'd just turn the Workshopping Humanity brand into this. Workshopping Humanity is going to be its own separate review show, and this is going to be the special features aspect, which is just some talking heads talking about current relevant news within the film culture and just culture in general. So that's kind of what this is. So I introduced it incorrectly at the start of the episode, just giving you a heads up there. Also, my mic quality this episode is horrific. That is because my mic fizzled out right before we started recording. So that's a lot of fun. So that's another heads up. And yeah, I think that's about all I have to say. Welcome to this new era of Workshopping Humanity again. And I'm really excited for you guys to hear this episode because I think it's genuinely really interesting.
And now, our feature presentation.
Hello, friends, and welcome to kind of the first episode of Workshopping Humanity. It looks a little different now, but this is kind of how this is going to be laid out. I'm going to just give you guys a setting real quick. So back in, was it, now it's been like 2020, 2021, we started a podcast called Workshopping Humanity where I sat down with a contributor of the Toy Box site or somebody outside of the Toy Box site, and we talked about this like a movie that had a special impact on them, and it was kind of like a little bit of an interview show, and we did about 20 episodes of that. That's still continuing. It's just like with me having to do it every single week there for a bit, it was like me trying to struggle to figure out what the next topic would be. So I'm just gonna have that happen more organically. And so that's going to be called Workshopping Humanity Special Features, and that's still happening. Luke Reviews episode on Cars is already recorded. That's coming out at some point soon. And so now we have Workshopping Humanity, which is essentially going to be us kind of dissecting film culture and trends and doing reviews and all of that fun stuff. And so we're going to have this like panels. Hopefully we're able to do this at least bi-weekly and just kind of like chat for a little bit. Apologies if my mic quality isn't the best. My mic fizzled out right before we started because of course it did. So, as the upcoming months go, things will start vibing, we'll start going. And I think, yeah, that's about it. So today we got a full panel. I'm Brett Schutt, and here, I'll pass it off to Jared. We can just do hot potato. Like I'll go like boom. Introduce yourself, Jared.
Hey everyone, I'm Jared. I don't know what to say. Just I'm here to have a good time and to talk about film. And yeah, let's have some fun.
Who are you passing it off to?
We're gonna go to Eden because that's the next person in my little Zoom world.
Cool. Hi, I'm Eden, and I guess this is my first time on Workshopping Humanity, but super excited to be here, super excited to be joining y'all, and can't wait to share my love of movies with everyone. And I'll pass it to Tristan because he is next on my screen.
Hi, I'm Tristan. I've been on lots of Toy Box podcasts and really excited to be part of this one. It's going to be a fun time. Excited to talk about Barbenheimer with you guys. So, yeah. Oh, and I'm going to pass it on to George because he's the last person. And the next person on my screen too, actually.
Doesn't seem to matter what I do. I'm always number two. No one knows how hard I tried. I have feelings that I can't explain, driving me insane. All my life been so polite, but I'll sleep alone tonight, 'cause I'm just Ken. Everywhere else I'd be a 10. It is my destiny to live and die a life of blonde fragility. I'm just Ken. Where I see love, she sees a friend. I'm not fucking doing this.
You did. You literally sang down the song.
You did.
What do you mean you're not doing
Amazing.
it?
I'm not singing the whole.
At this point, just finish it.
Called the Oscars. We're
I'm
gonna
not
send an
fucking.
Oscar to your
I'm
house
not.
right now.
I'm not fucking finishing this, bro. No. Yeah. No. Y'all know me. I host another podcast with this network. Yeah.
My favorite thing is how like you're disappearing, so you can just see David Lynch.
And the cow. Yeah.
My lighting
Uh,
is complete ass, by the way. I might just turn my camera off later.
it's all good. You do you. Um, so we're gonna start with. I mean, I think George already alluded to it. Is kind of the biggest thing going on in pop culture right now, which is Barbenheimer. And so this is kind of a crazy thing. Back in what 4 years ago when Barbie was a big like announcement that Greta Gerwig is going to direct it, and then Oppenheimer with Christopher Nolan, and then they're supposed to come out on the same day. It kind of became like a meme. It felt like a meme within film circles, though, for me to start with. Like it was like, oh man, the real men, we're gonna go see Barbie day one or whatever. Like that was just kind of like the running gag. But somehow, like it just caught the mainstream in a way that I don't think any of us expected, and it ended up becoming the fourth highest grossing weekend of all time for theaters.
Ab-
It,
Absolutely
it's
insane.
it's absolutely insane. The only other three that it is like below is Avengers Endgame, Avengers Infinity War, and Star Wars: The Force Awakens. I've worked 2 or 3 of those weekends as a movie theater worker, so I feel for all of you guys working Barbie and Oppenheimer because I was thinking about how much that would suck.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna dedicate this podcast to beer workers because when I did it on a Sunday, it was like football stadium packed, like nothing else. Concession line 24/7 was halfway through the door, and so like more power to you theater workers. You're doing a great job.
And look, a lot of these people seeing Barbie are going to be high energy. Let's be real. Um, goodness. Anyways, so I find this fascinating, but honestly, I think it is an incredibly cool thing that has happened. Because what it's done is number one, we got 2 movies with a distinct personality and style made by tour filmmakers for like a solid budget that ended up doing this. Like, it's not like this is Star Wars and this is Marvel and it's just like a certified brand. Like, these are both kind of risks of movies to take. And the fact that they have done so successfully, because I was expecting Barbie to do well, not nearly as well as it did, but I think the Oppenheimer number almost surprised me even more that it made $80 million. It is a rated R biopic about a scientist. Like, really, $80 million? It's crazy. I was gonna pass it on to you guys. Like, what are your thoughts on this whole thing going on? Because I think it's so interesting.
Yeah, I think what's so cool about it is that the marketing was completely organic and created by people on social media and just like movie fans in general who realized that these 2 movies were going to be on the same day and decided to turn that into a double feature. And at first, people were taking sides and being like, oh, I'm going to go see Oppenheimer. I'm going to go see Barbie first. But over time, it's cool how it's become this thing where the cool thing to do is to go to the theater and see both of them back to back, which I think is so interesting because you're seeing 2 incredible films that generate a lot of conversation that are completely different, but both are from auteur filmmakers, both that are feel like they're pushing the medium forward. So yeah, I think this is a really amazing thing, and I feel like studios are now going to try and manufacture this, and you're going to see these big studios working together to try and create this kind of counter marketing thing. But it's not going to work as well as it did here. We have seen it once before, kind of, and not to the same degree, but with Christopher Nolan, because Mamma Mia came out the same day as The Dark Knight.
I knew you
Mamma
were
Mia
gonna
had
say that.
a lot of legs, and those 2 films are like 2 of the biggest films of 2008. But it's different because those are 2 films that were obviously going to do well. Barbie, I mean, that is connected to an IP, but it's such a risk. And then Oppenheimer is like you said, Brett, like this biopic by Christopher Nolan, 3 hours, very dense. It's not the kind of film that you would think would, be a huge blockbuster and make a ton of money in the way that it has. So it's really cool that we've seen these 2 auteur films that are probably going to go on to be huge Oscar contenders come out the same day and also define the year's box office.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things where I feel like it's going to be like in year of review. Oh, remember when this happened?
Yeah.
Like when people do like that, like Dick Clark New Year's Eve show and they like try to recap the year. Like it is a cultural touchstone of the entire year. And I do like what you were saying about how like I think this is going to try to get manufactured again, but it's never going to quite work the same way because they didn't know this was going to happen. It was a very natural thing. I also think that Hasbro is going to announce like 25 different toys to make film adaptations of and try to hire these tour filmmakers to make them, and it's not going to work.
They already
Daniel Kaluuya
started.
Barbie movie.
Yeah. There's
Wait, they
announced
did?
like a
Did you
yeah,
guys see the Polly
Mattel,
Pocket announcement today?
Polly
Yeah.
Oh
Pocket,
God.
Lily Collins. Here's
Lena
the
And
Dunham is
thing
directing
though.
it.
Yeah.
The with Daniel Kaluuya and Barney is gonna go full speed ahead. Nothing's gonna stop it
Charlie
now.
Kaufman.
That
Yeah.
might actually work. That's the only one.
Yeah.
I'm interested in.
That one I'm curious about, but it's gonna end up being like the Playmobil movie, how that came out after the Lego movie and was just a disaster. I think we're gonna get a lot of those.
I don't
Hey, listen, I'm still holding out hope for the high stakes Uno heist movie. Like,
Oh,
I would
that's
see
That's
that.
Lil Yachty, right? That's Lil
Magic-
Yachty.
a Magic 8 Ball horror
Yeah.
movie could be good if it's by like the guys who did Talk to Me. Like let's go.
I'm looking for the Emerald Fennell Polly Pocket movie.
Well, unfortunately, Lena Dunham has that, so
Ew. That's pretty rough.
yeah.
I want the Hot Wheels movie directed by the Daniels.
Oh, that would be sick. But we got
That would
JJ
rip.
Abrams.
That would probably rip.
Yeah. A Michael Mann Hot Wheels movie would go pretty hard.
Yeah, that
Oh
might
my
work too.
Would it just be like Fast and Furious Hasbro edition? How would it
Yeah.
stand out?
I don't
That's
know.
the question these studios have to ask, you know,
Yeah.
with the filmmakers.
It would commentate on toxic masculinity. That would be
There you
Yeah,
go.
it could. And then also, just like Barbie, there's a lot of really strange, like recalled Hot Wheels cars that they could integrate. So instead of having like, Lambos and Ferraris racing, you'll have like these strange like Cookie Monster car and stuff like that.
Can you
And,
imagine
like-
if Noah Baumbach wrote every single one of these movies?
Yeah, it would be great.
Hey, he wrote Madagascar 3, right?
He
Yeah.
did.
Yes, he
It's the
did.
best Madagascar. It's so good.
You know, he wrote that because he needed divorce money.
Yeah.
It's wild to me. They just completely skipped over that part of marriage. Sure, when he wrote that. Goodness. But yeah, I think like the one that really like the fact that Barbie made $162 million opening weekend is absolutely baffling to me. It's like if you put it in perspective, that's higher than any Guardians of the Galaxy movie opening weekend. It's higher than any Iron Man opening weekend. It's higher than any Toy Story opening weekend. Like it's a franchise. I think they're definitely going to want to do more with the Barbie brand at this point. Potential theme park. I don't know. That'd be pretty cool.
Well, I don't think that Greta Gerwig's going to be involved anymore because she says she's not interested in the sequel.
She's doing Narnia, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only
Wow.
reason I'm even remotely interested in Narnia now.
Oh yeah. Greta Gerwig, her name could be on Phone Book, the movie, and I'll be like, okay, you got my ticket day one. You know,
Yeah.
she's just that
Book the
person.
movie.
She's one of the defining filmmakers of our generation at this point.
Yeah.
And
Her
it's
and Nolan.
cool. Her and yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like, sure, Oppenheimer made a lot more money than we anticipated, but like he was already a big name before this. I mean, Inception was a huge hit, Dunkirk. But to see Greta Gerwig, who at one point was like one of the founders of like the mumblecore movement, go on to be like one of the biggest filmmakers and like a name brand is like really cool. Like people in my work are talking about Noah Baumbach and Greta Gerwig, like people who have no idea about cinema at all. So it's really interesting to see that.
It's just like claimed art. Well, what's awesome about it too is like they didn't sell out either. Like Barbie is a completely weird, surreal movie that has their touch to it. Doesn't I mean, obviously it had notes, but it doesn't feel like it had notes, which is nice. And here's the interesting thing about Oppenheimer to me is like, of course, like Nolan's movies do well, but like $80 million for that type of movie, that was definitely just pushed by the whole Barbenheimer opening weekend thing. which is so cool. I mean, who knew it would work that well? But the fact that like Oppenheimer could end up being an over $200 million movie at the end of the day is kind of insane for the type of film that it is. Um, and then there's also Sound of Freedom. That's still chugging along.
Let's not open that can of worms.
At some point, there'll be a future episode where I watch that movie because I'm so curious at this point.
I might do that too, but I'm not paying for it.
I'm so curious. It made more money than Mission Impossible now. It's going to catch up.
Here's the irony though about Barbenheimer though. You know why Warner Brothers put Barbie in the same weekend as Oppenheimer?
Yeah,
it's because they wanted to spite Nolan, right?
And instead they helped him.
It backfired. Yeah, it totally backfired.
The thing is, Barbie would not have made this much money if it weren't on the same day as Oppenheimer.
I agree.
Like, they both helped each other.
I don't know if I agree with that because the marketing campaign for Barbie has been like absolutely fucking insane.
Yeah, it was, but you have a lot of people who went to the theater to see Oppenheimer and, went into Barbie without even paying attention to the marketing. I mean, I guess they would have had to even hear about Barbenheimer, but like, there were a lot of people who went in and didn't have the highest expectations and were really surprised by Barbie. Like, I'm hearing a lot of people who just went because they wanted to do Barbenheimer.
Yeah. I think it wouldn't have made 160, but it definitely would have still made over 100 million.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to me for that type of, because like Barbie should be the thing that just kind of flops on arrival and does not do anything. Right?
I don't know.
Well, I don't know.
I kind of disagree with that.
So
yeah, it's a huge brand, and then you also like the Lego movie did really well. Like people were like, "Oh, that's not going to do that well," and it did well, really critically and at the box office.
It's an IP with heart, and I will also say, don't discount the lack of female-focused, female-loving movies that there have been over the past decade. I mean, yes, we've had rom-coms, yes, we've had chick flicks, but this is just like a celebration of femininity. And I have seen women, friends of mine, family of mine, even myself, coming out of the woodwork in a way that I've never seen for a movie before.
That is very true. That's very true. Yeah, it just like, I guess if like Barbie wasn't good, maybe you can make the argument, but it was so good, and then a lot of people responded to it so well. Here's also the thing. To break this down, there's like, because we've seen kind of now this thing online where people are trying to say that it's like anti-men and it's toxic or whatever, and it's stupid. The vast majority of people do not subscribe to that.
They don't fucking care.
Beyond all political party grounds, it is insane. $162 million that's not all liberals seeing that movie at that point, guys. Like,
yeah,
which is
cinema score too. Like,
what was that?
A cinema score.
Yeah, a cinema score, exactly.
Yeah.
And have you guys seen the map? There's actually this really fascinating. Someone made a map, and they interviewed people.
The southern states are more interested in Barbie.
Yes, it's weird to me. It looks like the electoral map, and it seems like all the blue states were more into Oppenheimer, all the red states were more into Barbie, and I still don't entirely sure know how that happened.
Yeah. So something interesting I think about this whole Barbenheimer thing, someone pointing out online, both budgets combined of Barbie and Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer was made for 100 million, Barbie was 145 million, together 245. They're not even they're kind of close, but both together they're not even as much as Thor Love and Thunder's budget, which is 250 million, which I find insane and funny and just like power to like how you use a budget and whatnot.
Yeah.
Like 100 million to make Oppenheimer.
To me, smaller budgets are just better, honestly.
Oh yeah. Because I just wonder with like Marvel is like they have too much and they're sitting on top of a huge throne and they just don't know what to do with it because all their CGI sucks. But that's a different podcast or another time.
Let's spend $70 million to make Harrison Ford look like a 10/10 character for the first 30 minutes of your movie. Way to go. Did anyone else here see that movie?
Dial of Destiny?
Yeah.
I saw it and it was not good.
I like
about that.
don't care, and
Same, Jared.
We
Yeah.
want to talk about
Yeah.
actually good movies like Barbie and
Yeah.
Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
Okay,
let's-
so which one we want to talk about first?
How do we want to start our double feature, guys?
Yeah. How did you guys
I think we all started
I
it
start
differently.
with Oppenheimer because my point of view is like I knew Oppenheimer was going to be depressing. Let's get that out so I can cleanse good vibes to Barbie afterwards. So
I agree. So whenever I saw them both, I saw Barbie first, Oppenheimer second. I've been telling people that was the incorrect move. You see Oppenheimer first, you see Barbie second, because you're gonna leave the day more hyped. If you leave the day watching Oppenheimer, you're gonna be like, well, that was fun, but I'm also like realize I'm gonna die someday. So Oppenheimer.
Oppenheimer.
Directed by the one and only Christopher Nolan, like we said before. Um, Definitely one of those highly anticipated movies of the year for a lot of people. Nolan always is. The nice thing about this movie is that it's being reclaimed by several people after the whole Tenet debacle. Tenet was very divisive. This movie's not divisive. This movie's pretty much beloved by everyone. And I really like this movie. I was a fan. I have to see this movie again. I really do. When I watched the movie to begin with, like I set it up before, I saw it at 8:30 at night. I had seen Barbie before, and I had an entire day outside of that. So I was tired. Um, this movie kind of washed over me a little bit, but I was really impressed with Christopher Nolan's distinct sound in this film. It's unlike anything he's ever made. It does have kind of a bit of a social network flow, but it also feels a lot, it's just very epic in scope. I think his filmmaking here has never been better. I think the score is maybe one of the best scores I've ever heard in a movie. I think Cillian Murphy potentially gives one of the best performances I've ever seen. So this is like a movie where I just like the more and more I thought about it, more and more I'm like, yeah, no, this is like just a towering achievement of film. And it is, I think, going to win Best Picture this year, but that's a whole other conversation. Anyone any thoughts on Oppenheimer?
Well, here's what I'll say, and I don't think anyone is going to disagree with this. I think this is like pretty easily like Nolan's most successful film emotionally. And that's not to say that like he doesn't have films that like aren't emotional necessarily. It's just that like his films often feel very cold and distant, and to a certain extent this movie does too, but like there's a certain way that this movie kind of gets you where you're like, you know, there's a certain existential dread to it that his other films don't have. Like even Interstellar doesn't really have existential dread to the effect that, to the extent that that this movie does, right? So I think the film, what am I trying to say? For that reason, I think like because there's like existential stakes to it, it like works a lot better.
Yeah, it's for me, it's like one of his films that lingers in the mind longer than a lot of his other films that are
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I will say this: it is not like Nolan has never made a film that is about the survival of mankind, because that definitely isn't true. And like Nolan has talked about how he thinks of it in a similar context to AI, where like AI scientists are now kind of seeing this this rise in AI in the way that, you know, J. Robert Oppenheimer saw the atomic bomb after they launched it on Japan and Nagasaki. Of course, like I mean, there's an important context to be made. Like, you know, I think I don't think the movie directly goes into this, but Oppenheimer, was hoping to drop the bomb on the Nazis, right? Like the film does say like they're trying to get the bomb before the Nazis, right?
Yes.
I think Oppenheimer wanted to use the bomb on the Nazis because he was Jewish and he knew what was happening in Nazi Germany, right? But by the time it was ready, the Nazis had surrendered. So they were going to have to use it on Japan, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. But like, of course, you see in the film as he starts to see, like, as he starts to realize what this is about to be used for, it starts to fall apart for him. And I think the movie does convey this very effectively. Why it's like his most emotionally effective film. Like, we could talk all day about all the parts, all the great technical aspects of this movie, and we should. Like, I mean, this movie, like, editing, like, oh my goodness, this movie is superbly edited. I love the editing in this movie. It's so fucking good. The sound work in this movie is incredible. Cillian Murphy like gives my favorite performance of the year so far, probably. I love the score by Ludwig. I love Hoyt van Hoytema's cinematography. I mean, that motherfucker, Hoyt van Hoytema, amazing cinematographer.
Yeah, it's maybe the best right now.
Yeah. Like it's a perfectly made movie, but like I really like think this film breaks it home emotionally because I mean I guess spoiler alert from the movie. Like, I don't know. Do we want to talk spoilers with this? With these two
let's
films?
just like, so it is based off a true story. So I mean, spoilers as you will, but we can, like, after we get everyone's thoughts, then go back and just start talking about the plot.
Okay, I will save what I was about to say for that then.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, because it was about to be about the very end of the movie.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we'll talk about that in just a second, but let's have some more opinions, more thoughts at the table.
Sure. Yeah. So with Christopher Nolan, like similar to George, I've had a really difficult time connecting to his films. I tend to connect to films that are more like on more of an emotional level. And I feel like with Nolan, he focuses so much on the technical innovation that I feel like sometimes the emotional heft gets lost in translation. But with him, like I feel like I've always respected him as a great filmmaker and technical innovator, but I've felt that like as a storyteller and as a screenwriter, he there's something missing. But I feel like here he really nailed it. And one of the reasons why I think that is because I feel like Nolan put himself in the shoes of Oppenheimer in some respects. And obviously, two very different careers, very different people, but Oppenheimer is very closed off, and he's a person who's very complex, and I feel like Nolan understood that character in a way that some filmmakers I don't think would have been able to, and because of that, he really got into the mind of Oppenheimer, not just the science, but also the emotional turmoil of what it must have been like to be so consumed with the science and so consumed with creating this because of it being like a technical innovation, and because he wanted to be the first person to create this, that afterwards he had to deal with the destructive capabilities of what he created. And I feel like Nolan just really did a great job getting into his head and getting to the heart of that. And I felt like by the end of this film, I really understood this character. And part of it is Nolan and his writing, but part of it is also Cillian Murphy, who I think was perfectly cast as Oppenheimer. I mean, they look exactly the same, but from like a physical standpoint, like he embodied this character. What he does with his eyes is incredible. There's just so much depth that he brings to this role, and Killian was already like one of the greatest to ever do it in TV, but I feel like he hasn't really had that role yet in film, and this really I think is going to solidify him as one of the best of his craft.
Yeah.
Because like there are a few actors, really the only other one I could think of that could do this kind of this role would be Benedict Cumberbatch. But even then, I think one of the things that is so impressive about the role is how much he's able to express through just his eyes. And there's really no actor who's, I don't know exactly what to call it, but like just eye acting. It's what he's able to do is incredible.
Also, he looks just like the real guy.
Yeah,
He does. Yeah, the resemblance is really uncanny.
It's uncanny.
Yeah. But outside of just Nolan and Killian, I think Nolan really assembled an amazing cast and crew. Like George was saying, I mean, Hoyt van Hoytema is one of the greatest cinematographers right now, probably to ever do it. And what him and Nolan were able to do, collaborating on the actual explosion, was incredible. And plus with the sound work, it's simultaneously terrifying but also beautiful the way they do it, because it's like a culmination of like everything that all of these characters have been working towards, but they also really capture the devastating effects that this is going to have. So it strikes a really great balance. And then the cast, I mean, you've got so many actors who pop up for like one or two scenes that kill it, that we haven't seen in a while. Josh Peck, Benny Safdie is great. Matt Damon I really liked. He was great comedic relief.
Devin Bostic threw up in a trash can, so let's go.
Yeah. And then Robert Downey Jr., who I think gives one of the best performances of his career. He's a great actor, and this was a really it's tough because I know it's a very different kind of role. I love him as Iron Man, and I feel like he is Iron Man at this point. And then he's done some great stuff like on the comedy and like Drop of Thunder and then Chaplin. But like this is like from a dramatic standpoint, this might be the crowning achievement of his career. Yeah.
Whoever wants to go next.
I'll let you go first.
Okay, I'm gonna have to echo a lot of what Tristan's saying. The entire movie definitely hinges upon Cillian Murphy. He is outstanding. Everything he does, like Tristan was talking about, the eye acting, unlike anything I've ever seen before. Totally my best actor prediction for this year. He's unbelievable. One of the things that I found really interesting about Oppenheimer is the fact that you can't really call him a hero. When you come out of the movie, you're left with a very unsettling feeling in a very good way. But it's not cathartic the way that you come out of Barbie being like, oh, I feel better about myself and about the world. You're left with a very thought-provoking drive. And I don't know if Nolan's ever done that before, worked with a real anti-hero as opposed to somebody who is more of a protagonist. J. Robert Oppenheimer had his own moral conflicts, as are shown throughout the movie, but from the absolute get-go, from the opening scenes, we're told he is not necessarily a good person and he is not necessarily a bad person, and he is driven to both sides. And following such a character through the entire movie was just something absolutely fascinating to me, and that was something that I latched onto throughout the runtime. So I don't think I can say anything else better than Tristan or George have already articulated, but absolutely fascinating movie, and I definitely need to see it again in order to capture the scope of it all. Technically a masterpiece. Score is one of the best I've ever heard. Ludwig Göransson is unbelievable. So phenomenal. Jared, you're flailing.
Yeah, because I'm like fully agreeing with everyone. It will be hard to kind of just not echo what everyone's saying. So I'm just gonna do kind of bullet points. Wait, Van Hoytema, when you go from Nope to Oppenheimer, I have one more for you. You're a legend. Specifically the piece, Can You Hear the Music by Ludwig Göransson. And that sequence in the movie, I think I felt myself like levitating, like just it was like true art, to be honest. And it was just like this guy's early days at school. And then when you bring a good piece about Eden, about like this guy being an anti-hero or whatnot. I mean, like when you start the movie with the apple scene, I'll keep it vague. I think that's such like an interesting hook to you in kind of way to introduce your character in terms of a writing perspective. And it's just, I'm so happy because it's hard in the state of cinema to not feel afraid that we will get another live action Little Mermaid remake in 5 years. Just weird Moana remakes as well, just remakes IPs because they are the ones that make money. So it warms my heart that this is a Universal movie that played everywhere opening weekend. It's considered a mainstream release, but it's also a challenging adult drama with language and sex, and just you have to think. It's not going to give you easy questions. You might come out, there could be people who come out of this and still say, hey, Oppenheimer was a hero. He did what he had to do. Other people will say no, and that's probably the majority opinion. But we're left with, after 3 hours, a portrait of this man who, in the end, he left his life in his legacy of despair, and just like I'm just such at a loss for words. The more I think about it, it's such like a beautiful movie and a conflicting movie, and Cillian Murphy's great. I would also like to shout out. I know a big complaint about Nolan is like his female characters, right? But Emily Blunt, I think was totally like her role was totally different than what I thought was gonna be.
I have
And she,
thoughts.
yeah,
We could dive into those after.
yeah, and then I Florence Pugh, I one of our greatest like up and coming actresses. I mean, Don't Worry, Darling should carry on her back in her 20 minutes of screen time. She was not gonna let Cillian Murphy go down without a fight. Like it was a knockout, drag out in terms of acting. Anytime they were both on screen, it wasn't. Yeah, it was just such a good movie. Go see it. IMAX is great. Just find the biggest theater, watch it, and go support your theater. Yeah.
Hey, Eden, what were you going to say about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I know that there is a huge complaint over Christopher Nolan not writing depth of female characters. I've seen that around the internet, and I do agree with that for the most part. And I know that there's a lot of people saying that, oh, Oppenheimer has fixed the problem. And I disagree. I do think that Florence Pugh and Emily Blunt were both outstanding with what they were given. I think they're both standouts in the cast. And I think that when people talk about the standout roles and the standout characters in Oppenheimer, they will definitely be up there with the men like Cillian Murphy's Oppenheimer and Robert Downey Jr.'s Strauss. However, I don't think that they delved into their characters at all. I don't think they had to for the sake of the movie. This was very much Oppenheimer's story, and they didn't really have time to extend it any further. However, everything was told and not shown. I don't really want to get into spoiler territory, but we're told that the characters have their conflicts, and you can see it on screen with the way that Kitty feels when she first has her child and her leaving her marriage and what happens with Florence Pugh's character. But we're never given what led them to that place or why they might feel that way or how they're trying to face it. It almost feels like it's just a cardboard cutout of a woman who Oppenheimer interacts with rather than a character in their own right. Like Christopher Nolan just kind of threw a single trait onto them and said, okay, that's it, you're fully developed. So I don't think that the female character problem is solved. And I think it can be, because I watched Interstellar recently and Jessica Chastain's Murphy is a beautiful character. But I don't know. I don't think that Oppenheimer took those strides in the way that the internet is making it seem like they did. And I don't think it had to, but I would love to see Nolan write a female character that actually is more developed in the future.
I completely
sorry,
agree
George.
with you. I completely agree with you. Yeah, it didn't really bother me this time around. Like it's kind of like Nolan's sound problem with like, where like oftentimes like you can't hear the character's dialogue. In Dunkirk, it's excusable because like you're in a fucking war zone, right? Like everything else is gonna be louder around you. But like, in Tenet and in The Dark Knight Rises, that's like no, it's a problem. I mean, the writing of female characters is a problem in Nolan's other movies. I think it's less of a problem here because like you said, it's from his perspective. we're not gonna fully understand like Florence Pugh's character from Oppenheimer's perspective. She would need her own film. But yeah, I don't think, like, I do not begrudge people for having a problem with the writing of the female characters in that film. And I also, I guess, to kind of jump off of that, I also understand people's problems with how Florence Pugh's character is shown on screen for much of her screen time. And that she, for maybe half her screen time at least, she has no clothes on. Yeah,
I thought that was bizarre too.
I completely like it.
Yeah.
Like, here's the thing: nudity does not really bother me in movies. I don't really care that much, but I don't begrudge people for thinking like it was unnecessary.
Also, like the fact that that Destroyer of Worlds quote, like that's synonymous with Oppenheimer, and the fact that they decided to like unveil that quote during the sex scene was like such a stupid decision. It was so dumb. It was so stupid.
Well, also because the text that it comes from is, I believe, a holy text that so it's not supposed to be associated with sexual activity at all. So that was definitely a choice.
Yeah, that's the only thing in the movie that I have problems with, but it was really dumb.
Yeah. It's just like, it reminds me of that scene in Drive My Car where he's getting all of his inspirations.
I always thought that was a weird scene that like no one talked about when that movie came out, but
I mean, in Drive My Car, it kind of works. Like,
I mean, that movie's perfect, so.
But also, like, it's adapted from Murakami stories, and Murakami is also not always the best at writing women.
Yeah, fair enough.
I'm coming from someone who's a fan of his.
Hamaguchi, I think, I mean, this is a totally different conversation, but I think he is good at writing women.
He kind of is a better writer than Murakami is. I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah. I do. Oh, sorry, Brett. Were you
gonna? No. Go for it, Tristan. Go for it.
I have a point about. Okay, so I agreed with you guys. I do agree with you guys about that's one of my biggest problems with Nolan. That I don't think he writes female characters very well at all. And I felt that way the first time I watched Oppenheimer. And then the second time, because I did the double feature twice, I just watched it again yesterday. I had less of a problem with it. And I think the reason is because not only is it through Oppenheimer's perspective, but the reason we're not understanding the women is because Oppenheimer never understood the women in his life. Oppenheimer only understood science, and he was so consumed by it and consumed by like all the particles in the universe and like trying to figure out like they say many times in the movie that he's beyond this world. Like he's thinking, oh, sorry, Jared, did you want to say something?
No, finish. I'm just reminding to myself a point. Yeah.
But because of that, like he was so consumed that when it came to like romantic relationships and sexual relationships, he didn't need much from them. And because of that, I think not just the women in his life, but a lot of his friends and other people in his life, like he used them for what he was what he needed, like and usually that was science-based. But I don't think he ever really understood people. And I think the movie does a really good job at showing how closed off he is. And I think later in the movie, especially in that third act, the reason why Emily Blunt's character is you see more like there's more conversations between Oppenheimer and her, and she gets like Oppenheimer trusts her to go on the podium and talk. And the reason why is because I think their relationship was strengthened later, where Oppenheimer realized that he was so focused on science that he created something detrimental to the world and something that was going to hurt everyone around him. So I don't know. I think it's interesting because like the first half of the movie, you see him, he's so consumed by science. In the second half, he realizes he forgot the fact that, the most important thing about the world is the people on it.
I really like that view.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah. I was I was just gonna say, kind of what's mentioned a lot in the movie is, the line of like theory can only take you so far. And so like that's Oppenheimer's work, is doing like theories and whatnot. And so that's probably like, unfortunately, I would think maybe he applied it to women. Like, okay, the theory is I should in society get married, have kids, check mark on my list. And in theory, that should be a happy relationship. But then we see that doesn't work at all. And then credit to my friends I saw the movies with. Like a couple of them were in this thing in high school called Acadec, and what it is, it's like academic a decathlon, and every year there's a different theme that they study and do different academic things for. And one year when I was in high school and we were all in high school, it was all about World War II. So this Oppenheimer, they were all over it, top to bottom. This was just like a thing in my high school culture. It was huge, and they studied for weeks and all that jazz. And so they were saying that Oppenheimer was very much a womanizer, more so than the movie showcased. And so I think there's generally just a problem with him and women. And so unfortunately, maybe that was just the life. And I of course don't agree with it. That's all I'm saying. But like, yeah, I guess that was just his character, unfortunately. And yeah.
Yeah. And then I'm gonna actually get back to George because let's talk about the ending real quick. So if you're listening to this and you haven't seen the movie yet, you can just skip to the next part of the podcast. So the links will be in the description if you're on YouTube or whatnot. It's also based off of a true story, but hey, if you don't know the true story, you don't want it
I
spoiled.
mean, the
So
spoiler is very specific to the film, to be
yeah,
fair.
fair enough. All right.
Okay. Here's the most impactful moment of the movie for me. In that very ending scene, which we get glimpses of throughout the movie from Robert Downey Jr.'s perspective, right? Because we think it's the one where Oppenheimer is talking to Einstein, right? From Robert Downey Jr.'s perspective, he thinks, oh, they're talking about me. But of course, at the end of the movie, it's revealed, no, they're not talking about him. It was that he was talking about this some equation where they found like this thing in the algorithm that Einstein came up with that allows for nuclear weapons. That there would be a possibility that this starts a chain reaction and destroys the world. And Oppenheimer, he says to Einstein, hey, do you remember when we found that in the equations? And Einstein says, yeah, I remember. And Oppenheimer says, it may not have literally happened, but I think it happened. And obviously he's talking about the nukes, and we see like a Terrence Malick-esque montage of the nukes like actually like being used and destroying the world. And that might be the best ending in Nolan's career, if I'm being completely honest. And it's one of the best endings of in any movie this year. Like, that thing fucked me up.
Yeah, no, it's very sobering. Like,
Yeah.
it's very eye-opening too. Like, I think that's definitely the thing that people are taking away from is the idea of like, because I think the entire arc of Oppenheimer's character is he is so smart that he kind of knows how we're all gonna die because he figured it out, you know? And if you, it's almost like being cursed to be that intelligent to where you're in on everything. And that's a really interesting hubris for a character to have.
Yeah. It actually does remind me of a quote by Einstein. Sorry, Jared, but like I remember there's this quote by Einstein that they used to play in the cutscenes of Call of Duty. That's literally the only reason I know this quote. I think it was Einstein who said that World War III would be fought with weapons, but World War IV would be fought with sticks and stones. And obviously that's a reference to like nuclear annihilation.
Yeah.
And then like to use like this Oppenheimer space time, I thought it was so interesting, like you go into this movie and it's about like one man's ego about Oppenheimer, right? And it's like maybe you go in thinking like, oh, how he created this atomic bomb, how great it is, but then the movie slowly turns into Robert Downey Jr.'s character's ego,
Yeah.
thinking like it's about him and everything. It was so hard to watch like in the movie, like seeing like knowing that he was like what the bad guy, I'm gonna use terms, and he was behind like everything bad
Yeah.
happening to Oppenheimer, and then like me not knowing, I'm like, oh, he's probably gonna win, and that's the depressing ending that I've heard online. And then Rami Malek comes in, and it's like, hold the press, boys, and he has this like great scene that like destroys everything. Shout out to Alden Ehrenreich, he was good in his like little assistant role as well. And if you want more from him, he's really good in Fair Play. That should be coming out on Netflix
It's
maybe
going to
this
TIFF.
year.
It's going to
Also
TIFF.
at
More on that
TIFF.
later.
It is going
Yeah.
to TIFF. That is a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I love
I-
Alden Ehrenreich though. In that. He's really good.
I like
Yeah,
that
he's
movie.
He's
We all
just
watched that
making up
together.
for being
We
a
all watched it
cliffhanger.
together.
Yeah, he's just making up for
I
watch
didn't
for
make
being a
it, but
cliffhanger.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm interested to check it out. It looks good.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
So-
I've
Oh,
issues
sorry.
with that. Oh no, go ahead.
Oh, you're good.
Oh, I already said. Sorry.
No, you're good. Okay. Let's everyone give a numerical rating to Oppenheimer. Numbers don't matter, but I'm curious.
What's our rating system?
Let's do the Fantano system.
Yeah.
The
Okay,
Fantano system.
The
Oh my
Fantano
Lord,
system.
have
Can
mercy.
you explain
Um,
what that is?
Yes.
I
Okay.
think it's just numbers.
Kristen,
It's-
please.
It's a number scale of 1 to 10, except instead of doing like, you know how some people will go like 5.6,
Yes.
you will say like I'm
The
feeling
point something. The point whatever system is dumb, by the way.
yeah, it's too much.
Mhm.
Be like I'm feeling a strong 9 on this one. Or like
Okay.
a decent to strong 8 or something like that.
Gotcha.
So it's basically a sliding scale with numbers. So like light, decent, and strong.
Yeah. I'm feeling a light 9 on Oppenheimer.
I'm with you on that. Light 9.
Nice.
I'm feeling a 10.
Hey.
Honestly, I think I'm gonna agree with Tristan there.
Oh, let's go, George. High
It,
five.
it could be a strong 9 on rewatch, but yeah.
Can I do like mid 9? Like a good like
Decent-
mid
decent
solid 9,
9.
decent 9. Yeah, that's what I'll go for.
that would be it.
I think that makes our average a decent 9 for Oppenheimer. So
Strong.
go see it.
Mhm.
That's all we're saying. But now we have to go into the greatest film ever made, real quick.
Yes.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So we have to like
Ben Shapiro's favorite movie.
yeah, Ben Shapiro's favorite movie ever made, Barbie.
I'm gonna go off on so many little details that I loved about this movie. Like it's so
Number one.
crazy.
We have to have a spoiler section for this movie because I have so much to say about it. If you guys
Yes.
don't already know, I have written an entire little thing about it on the Workshop of Humanity Instagram. You should definitely read it because I kind of
It's
went
really
off
good.
on this movie. So number one, this is definitely one of, if not my most anticipated movie of the entire year. Noah Baumbach is my favorite screenwriter working today and maybe potentially ever at this point.
He's up there.
Yeah, Greta Gerwig's one of my favorite directors.
She's also up there.
If you guys know me, I am obsessed with like Paddington 2 and Where the Wild Things Are, like in Fantastic Mr. Fox. I love these like elevated, like you take a children's property and like twist them and turn them into something different. So whenever Barbie was like a thing, I was like, oh, this is completely up my wheelhouse. This is gonna be the coolest thing ever. And it was. Here's the thing that I love about this movie. It is exactly what I wanted it to be. Whenever I first heard about the concept of a Greta Gerwig Barbie movie, I was like, man, it'd be really cool. They really let her cook. And they did. They 100% did. This movie is, it doesn't feel like it has any notes. I know it does because we know Andre told us, our friend Andre's on early screening of it, and it was different than the final result. So it definitely had notes, but it doesn't feel like it had notes. And that's really what's important.
Yeah, exactly.
This movie wouldn't have been made 10 years ago, or probably wouldn't even been made 5 years ago. is a
Definitely not.
changing market, and that is why this movie exists. And it is very interesting and it's very cool. Um, what I was most impressed with this movie, so when I was hearing about the test screenings, everyone's talking about how good Ryan Gosling was. And they were 100% right. I think he gives potentially the best comedic performance I've ever seen in a movie. I really can't think of a better one. I'm not going to lie. He completely embodies a character. And what I've said in my review on my page, he embodies the character much like Johnny Depp did with Captain Jack Sparrow about 20 years ago. That's the type of commitment and performance that it is. And it's remarkable. But Margot Robbie, I think, might give, I can't speak, might have given the best female performance of the year. It's really between her and Greta Lee, and it is like gonna be a war for me. She is so good, not just because she embodies Barbie, but gives a depth to Barbie that only she could have. Um, what I love about this movie, and something that a lot of people like I've seen be like, oh, it's just kind of like a silly comedy. This movie literally takes its time and sits with you and has legitimate, deep character moments, not only with just Barbie, but with Ken. And what's interesting is the entire film, like, it is very much a movie about, the struggles with patriarchy and kind of women's role in society and how they've been kind of shoved aside. And it is a definite social satire of that. But regardless, it shows how a system like that actually affects everyone. I what I loved about the movie is that while there's so much compassion for Barbie and there's so much compassion for the woman in this movie and their struggles within society, there's also compassion for the Kens. And that is why I think it is so dumb that people say this movie's anti-men, because they're incorrect. It's not simply well, we have a different interpretation of this movie. I'm sorry, they are incorrect, because the text is in the movie. It's literally
People have
right
no
in
media
front of you.
literacy.
It literally stops and explains it to you.
It's actually like a problem, like media literacy and people just being like, it should be taught in schools, but that's another rant. But yeah.
That's it's a whole it's insane. Regardless, again, I have an entire thing I wrote about it because it drives me nuts. Going back to it though, I make it sound like, oh, this is deep, sobering film. It's not. It's so fun. It's maybe the most fun movie ever made. I genuinely can't think of another movie that I've laughed this hard at. I mean, it's just very specifically my sense of humor. If I was to pinpoint what my sense of humor is, it is definitely this movie. So I'm definitely at a bias there. But like everything, I think just about everything that was supposed to be humor worked in that movie for me. And again, I also like, something else I hear is like how unsubtle it is. This movie needed to be unsubtle. This message needs to be
Exactly.
unsubtle.
Yeah.
It's 2023 and this is still an issue. Scream it at her face. Go for it. Unlike someone like an Adam McKay who kind of makes loud statements without any real backing, this movie is an actual movie that has something to say. And so I think that's the difference. I don't think it's just like Greta Gerwig standing on the top of a mountain screaming her like feminist propaganda or whatever. I think she has legitimately created and crafted a really compelling and wonderful little movie that is saying a whole lot and earns everything that it says. The production design here is remarkable. It is absolutely mind blowing. Again, color theory, attention to detail, like Jared was saying, the cinematography, everything. It's perfect. I mean, it is absolutely flawless. And yeah, I mean, I'm so excited that it's doing as well as it does, because this feels like it should have just been a cult movie. It really feels like it should have been like the thing that you're like, have you seen Barbie? You gotta see Barbie. It's amazing. Like, it feels like it should be the Josie and the Pussycats of the generation, but it's actually like the biggest movie in the world. And it's cool that we got here. It's cool that we got here. It feels like Everything Everywhere All at Once really is feeding the foundation to make movies like this happen. And I'm obsessed. I love this movie. Spoiler, it's a 10. Jared, what are your thoughts on this movie? You're just right beside me. So.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Wow, I just like, you walk away like, something I talk to my friends and you're like, how is this made? Like, because it's so, and I feel like there are people who brought their kids and probably thought this was gonna be something along the lines of like a Paw Patrol movie, and they just had Barbie and whatnot. But then, like, this movie is like, what I wrote in like my Letterboxd review is it's kind of like asking us like, okay, why should we want to be human? The world sucks. Why do I want to wake up to hear about studios not paying writers, to be in a world where women are like constantly being abused and have to be high and like fighting just to get a piece of meat that the men already have? Like, why do I want to do that? And why do humans want to do that? And it explores that question while also being a movie that calls Barbie a fascist. Like, it's all in there in pink coding with Margot Robbie. Her performance for some reason with my brain chemistry didn't hit on the first viewing. I think I was just so like into Ryan Gosling, loving him. But then second viewing, I was like, oh, she's putting in the work. I love her so much and what she does with her character. Um, and then it's all so good. I love a Greta Gerwig monologue to the one America Ferrera gives. I want that like in my room, and like just I just need all Greta Gerwig's monologues like in my room in little places that I can find and just read to myself and be like, okay, this is greatness right here. Um, yeah, yeah. Oh, and also one more thing. Shout out to Kate McKinnon as Weird Barbie. I think her performance deserves a little more like up there. Um, I thought she brought like the really weird humor that she kind of does really well on SNL, but she makes it fit into this world. Um, yeah. And then, okay, one last thing. The whole dance the night sequence dance party was really hard for me to not start dancing. The vibes were immaculate. And so I just want to congratulate Greg Gerwig for just capturing that energy of like a really great dance party.
Yeah, absolutely. Eden, what are your Barbie thoughts? I know you have a lot of Barbie
I'm
thoughts.
so excited. I love this movie. I love Greta Gerwig. I love Barbie, and I just want to shout it from the rooftops. I don't know. I don't think I've had a movie hit me this hard in a very long time. Jared's right. There's such an energy to it, not just in the dance the night sequence, but across the entire film. And maybe it's the pink, and maybe it's just the fact that if you look at any of the behind the scenes photos, videos, the cast just seem to be having the best time every single day. I don't know. There's an undercurrent of just love and excitement and joy that powers the whole film, even as it gets into its more existential themes, and it really invigorates you as an audience member. Okay, how do I put this into words? Greta Gerwig has created a project that is full of condemnation, but also love, if that makes any sense. Brett, you were talking about how, obviously there's a lot of people who are saying, oh, this is such a feminist film. We're not going to see it. It's too woke. I think Greta herself called it a humanist film, and really that is what it is. They touch as much upon what it means to be a man in a patriarchal society and a matriarchal society, what it means to be a man in the modern world, and what it means to be a woman. Pretty equally, if not leaning more towards the male exploration. I feel as though we delved deeper into Ken's identity and manhood than we did Barbie's. Barbie's was more about what does it mean to be to exist in a world, whereas Ken's struggle is more what does it mean to exist in the world as a man, if that makes sense. Which I thought was really interesting. I don't know if I'm articulating that well. Obviously, there's a lot about womanhood.
I didn't even think about it that way, but that's a very interesting point. I really think, that you're on the same thing. Yeah.
Which I think is fascinating, because as much of a feminist film as it is, and it very much is, and I love that, there's also a lot for men of all ages and generations to get out of it. And I've seen it twice now. I saw it with Tristan and then with my mother. And both times we were talking about how it's really the men who say that they don't want to see this movie who need to see it the most.
Yes.
Because I think it'll really cause a change in that perspective.
Yes.
Yeah, Greta Gerwig is a master of the third act monologue. If you loved Joe's woman speech in Little Women, you are going to love America Ferrera's monologue in this movie. every single word is so authentic. Everything she said, it just hit me right in the heart. I think I turned to Tristan and I like tapped his knee, and I don't talk during movies. I turned to him and I was like, I have felt every word of what she was saying, and everybody needs to hear this. It's one of the most impactful monologues I've ever heard. And yeah, blew me away. I also need it on my wall. Jared, I'm joining you with that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Margot Robbie is outstanding. Ryan Gosling is outstanding. I have to say my two unsung heroes were Kate McKinnon and Michael Cera.
Yeah.
He
Alan's
has
my spirit animal.
Alan. I
Yeah.
wish we dove more into Alan.
Oh,
Yeah, I agree.
There are honestly some really great, like, I wouldn't say theories, but like on TikTok, people connecting to Alan, especially just like maybe it's because my feed of like queer guys in terms of just like Alan being that representation of like you're not really a woman, but your friends are mostly female friends. So you just don't fit at all with the straight heteronormative um culture. Of course, it's not delved as deeply because it's just Alan, but it's been interesting hearing people say like that theory, that perspective, and and kind of seeing that relating to that Harley as well. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
resonated with Alan as a character for sure. Because it's like I didn't resonate with the Kens in that movie because like it's not my energy. The Alan was 100% my energy.
Like your Kenergy, you mean?
I was like, yeah, the Kenergy. It was funny because like I told my friends at work, I'm like, there's this character in this movie named like this Barbie movie. His name is Alan, and he's literally me. And like people that have been to work have come back to work. They're like, I saw Barbie, and Alan is 100% you. I'm like, I don't know if this is a compliment or not, but like, thank you.
Are we talking about Alan?
Yeah,
Yes.
Alan is
Yeah.
real.
Yeah, I wish they explored that character. Like, I'll talk about the movie a bit later. I absolutely loved it. But the one thing I wish they did more of was explore more of that character. Because I think whereas, and like the Kens, you know, they're exploring a certain type of guy and how men are perceived in society, but Alan's it's a different kind of masculinity, and one that I feel like I identify with more. Like it's a more quiet, sensitive type, and I feel like that's a character that we need to see more of on screen. And I really liked the suggestion of that, but I feel like they should have explored his character a little bit more.
I do have to say I found it a little weird. Maybe if you guys found something else, like they say in the movie he's Ken's best friend, but I don't think they ever really interact one-on-one once. And if
Yeah.
anything, Kingsley Ben-Adir was more his best friend
Well,
than
I think they're
him.
saying that the doll is supposed to be his best friend, not necessarily like the character. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Like the doll is pitched as like, oh, this is Ken's best friend. This is all close fit Alan, and then there's only one edition of Alan because nobody cared about Ken. So why would they care about Alan? You know?
Okay, I see
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just Barbie. We have a film now that is celebrating pink and love and femininity and what it means to be a woman in modern society. And I just think it's beautiful that this movie exists. And I want to see it as many times as I possibly can. And thank you, Greta Gerwig. You are my hero. That's all I can say.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. George, what are your thoughts on Barbie?
Okay, yeah. Yeah, it was awesome. So here's the thing. I think and I think this is like very important to acknowledge. And this is something that my friends of I who run a podcast said today on their episode. You know, I am not a woman, cis or otherwise. So in this movie deals with lived experiences that I have no way of knowing, right? So like I'm still gonna talk about the movie, obviously, because I have my thoughts on it, but I do implore you to listen to what other women have to say on this movie, like Eden and like other critics, female critics who really love the film. Like I think that is something I highly implore you to do, because I don't have the lived experience of being a woman or knowing much about femininity. Um, what I have been what I'm I think this film, what you guys touch on is like this movie does like talk a lot about femininity and masculinity, And in a way, to a certain extent, it kind of does reject the whole idea that it's like a social construct, but also like, it says like, hey, there is more than one way to um to be masculine, right? As Tristan was saying, Tristan identifies with the kind of masculinity that that Alan has, and I think to a certain extent, I do. I'm not the fucking like the buff skinny dude by any means. You know what I'm saying? But like in a way, I can kind of relate to Ken just kind of being like one of those. This is gonna sound really cringe, but like I don't know, feeling lost in a way. Like there's a lot of like, it's what draws people to people like Jordan Peterson, for example, like men who just feel lost
Yeah.
for whatever reason, and like they see someone like Jordan Peterson going on and saying like, well, men are lost in the world, and they you need to clean up your room and do all this stuff.
That's beautiful.
So that sounded like Herbert the Pervert from Family Guy.
I mean, same difference.
Yeah. But I mean, it's the kind of thing that draws people to Jordan Peterson, and I think like what this movie does so well is that like it actually gives you the counterpoint where it's like, no, like this is like you can be masculine and still like respect women and things like that, and you can still like you can be masculine and you can be feminine. That's perfectly okay. And you like anyone can be Barbie is the message of the movie. Is how I interpreted it. Now maybe Greg Gerwig and Noah Baumbach will listen to this and say, actually, maybe not. But I don't know. Who knows if they even like watch YouTube podcasts? They probably don't. But yeah, like that's kind of how I thought. Like
so hi, I love you. Sorry.
Yeah, like anyone can be Barbie is how I interpreted the movie, and I think that's a really awesome message, and I agree very much with Eden saying the men who say they don't want to see this movie are the people who need to see it the most, because like it kind of does speak to them. I think in the first trailer, it was like, if you love Barbie, this movie's for you. If you hate Barbie, this movie's for you. Like, I think that they kind of meant that literally in a way.
Yeah.
If you get what I'm saying, like, they're kind of they have something to say to you too, and I think it does that really well. But yeah, this it's the most fun I've had in a movie in a long time, and also like I think it's just a really big breath of fresh air that like we got a movie about an IP that's not this soulless corporate product. Like, I mean, I didn't see it, but like Ant-Man Quantumania or whatever with Modoc ass, yeah. But yeah, like it's really refreshing to see auteur filmmakers doing an IP movie, and it turns out really well. It's not necessarily like bold feminist commentary by any means. It's very much not, but it also doesn't try to be. And it's trying to have its cake and eat it too. And I think it does that successfully for what it's worth. I mean, I do understand like if some people think that it's a bit shallow in its messaging, but like I also just don't agree with that. I do very much think this is an important movie that people should definitely watch. And it's also just not just because like it's very thoughtful and has a lot of very important things to say, but also just because it's really, really fun. And nobody mentioned Will Ferrell in this movie. A lot of people seem to have problems with this character. I don't know what y'all are talking about. I thought he was fucking hilarious in this movie.
Yeah,
like
he's fun too. I think he's good.
Yeah, like when he says, "I'm the son of a mother of a son." I know that's hilarious to me. I don't know what y'all are talking about.
I also like was
Y'all are tripping.
because I have a friend that's Jewish or something like that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like
Yes.
I mean, you can say what you will about Hasbro's tactics as a company, because I definitely know there's some rough history there. But at
Well, it's
least props to
Mattel.
them for being
It's-
able to make fun of themselves a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's an important thing to do.
Oh, I 100% believe the scene where like Barbie's like, "Where's your female CFO?" and then Will Ferrell like goes into that whole rant. That was probably the scene the actual CEO of Mattel probably was like, "Hey, I'm not sure about that scene," and Greta and Marco had to go and act out the scene for
Yeah,
them. Uh,
absolutely. So Tristan, what are your Barbie thoughts?
Oh, yeah, I haven't talked about it yet. Yeah, so just to echo, I mean, all of you articulated it so beautifully, and like I totally agree with everything you're saying. I think it's an incredible movie, and what Greta and everyone who worked on the film was able to accomplish here is really unprecedented. I think 4 years ago, or whenever it was announced, when we first found out that Greta was attached to a Barbie movie, I was a little worried, and not because I didn't think that Greta was capable of, bringing her unique style to a bigger budget, but because I thought that Hasbro, what is it? No, it's Mattel. Sorry, I thought that
Mattel. Sorry.
Mattel was
I
going
said
to.
Hasbro. I think it's Mattel. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah, they're one and the same, honestly. But I thought that wait, Hasbro is Monopoly, right?
I guess
Yes.
so.
I want a Monopoly movie now.
Mhm.
make it like
But
It's called Living
Succession.
in the
Oh my
United
gosh.
States.
They were
Yeah,
supposed
that'd
to
be
have
cool.
one with Kevin Hart, I think.
Talk about capitalism. But yeah, no, I was worried because I thought that Mattel would censor certain things, and wouldn't allow Greta to fully put her vision forth. But I thought they were great in terms of just allowing her to have free reign. Because this movie is it doesn't let them, it doesn't give them a pass. It really, I think it analyzes Barbie and that whole the toy line, and basically shows that it created unrealistic beauty standards, but also at the same time, I think it gives Barbie props for what it has done right in terms of creating, for example, I mean, the before the first woman went into space, I think there was already a Barbie astronaut. So like there were certain things where they were ahead of the curve, and certain things where, like one of the characters says in the movie, it set the feminist movement back by like 50 years. And that's a bit of an exaggeration, but like I think this movie does a really good job basically giving props to the property, but also making it like paying it credibility where it has to. But yeah, I think the great thing about this film is that it's able to act as this big studio comedy with with huge musical numbers and a huge cast, but also have existential themes, and also comment on so many different issues, gender issues, and inequality. And I mean, what's great about it is that, and one of the things that makes it so funny and so sharp is that the actors are all playing it straight. So the actors, they're so committed to the roles that a lot of the humor comes through in that, which is great. But sorry, I'm rambling a bit.
You're doing
But
great.
thank you. There's so much to talk about with this movie, because it's so packed with ideas, and an incredible cast, and incredible production design. And there's so much going on, and I've seen it twice, but I feel like I need to go back to the theater like 3 or 4 more times just to get everything, because there's so many little like jokes and details, like even in the production design and in the costume design, it's just such a there's such a focus on detail, and I love just how much care every single person put into the film. And like I think we were talking about this a bit earlier, but I love how it really is a humanist film. Like one of probably my favorite moment in the movie was when can we like get into spoilers a little bit?
Let's do it. We've talked about it long enough. Spoilers, yay.
Okay.
Skip to the next thing if you don't want to hear it. Yeah.
Now, one thing that really touched me, and obviously I'm not a woman. I'd like to hear your perspective on this, Eden, afterwards. But like this moment really touched me, where Margot Robbie, like Barbie, turned to an older woman and just complimented her, and it was such a like nonchalant moment. But and I heard that it was the one moment that Mattel was actually trying to get Greta to cut, because it apparently like didn't fit into the narrative. But I thought it really was the heart of the film, and that I think oftentimes, you know, people are held up to all of these unrealistic beauty standards and stuff, but it's really the beauty within that's important. And we really need to, like, as a society, go around and compliment each other and make each other feel good and prop each other up, not just women, but men and society in general. And I think it's that moment was such an important part of the puzzle of this film. And I just love the point that Greta was making. But I'd like to hear like your thoughts on that moment and everything in general, Eden.
Can I have like a quick aside? Just
Yeah.
Cool. This is a quick fun fact, something I discovered that I think you guys would think was interesting. The older woman in the scene is the daughter of the creator of Barbie. You know how she said that she named Barbie after Barbara?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Barbara.
So I saw that,
God.
and then I
Yeah.
saw that was debunked, and it's actually a costume designer, and I don't know
Yeah,
which
I was
one's
about to
true.
say, like that's an
Is
costume
that-
designer.
Yeah, I think that's like an Oscar-winning costume designer.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. That's I maybe I fell for fake news. I don't know. Anyways, Eden, continue.
You saw
Sorry.
it on the Daily Wire.
Yes.
Sure. Do you want my thoughts on the movie as a woman, or that scene in particular, or both?
Both. Just I don't know, take it away, because you are,
Okay.
you know, I think it's important to hear your thoughts about this film as a woman, because we're you know, we're taking it in a different perspective, but like
Yeah.
I want to hear what you think.
And I feel like I looked at it from a very objective humanist perspective before, and I have so much to say about it from a feminist perspective as well. Yeah, first of all, let me just say, as a woman, I find it absolutely fascinating to hear four guys talk about what they loved about this movie, and to hear that you have loved this movie. I think that is absolutely amazing, and it just blows my mind every time that you have such unique and introspective and unbelievable perspectives, really, about the movie. So thank you for sharing and having such an open mind and seeing movies like this, because I don't know, I think that's fantastic. That scene that Tristan was talking about, where she goes up to the older woman and tells her that she's beautiful. Absolutely agree with everything you were saying, Tristan. Save for one thing. I don't think that it was a celebration of the beauty inside as much as it was telling the audience that older women can still be beautiful too.
That too, yeah.
From what I've read about the movie and that scene in particular, the reason Barbie says that is because she's never seen an older woman before, anybody who's older than, say, her. And so when she sees somebody who looks different than anything she's ever known, all she sees is beauty and love. And so she compliments the woman, because she hasn't grown up in an environment that's taught us that everything that comes with age, wrinkles, cellulite, as the movie points out, is a bad thing. I think that's just so beautiful. I think in that scene, we're being told that, you know, why are we brought up to think that age is something to be feared, especially for women? I feel like a lot of the time when you look at an older male celebrity, you're told, oh, they've aged well, they're a silver fox, the gray hair looks great on them. Whereas you look at an older woman and she's aged out of the system. And correct me if I'm wrong, I may be looking at this from a female perspective and may have double standards that I'm missing. So please call me out if the same phenomenon happens to you guys too. But I feel like so often we're told that older women no longer have value, and this one scene really seems to counteract that. So I thought that was really beautiful. I hope I articulated that well.
Yeah, very well, very well. Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Thank you.
I also think an idea, I mean, I feel like if that scene isn't in the film, the idea of Barbie wanting to become a human at the end doesn't make sense as well.
Yes.
Because I think that's the very
Yeah.
moment where she figures out, oh, I actually want to live, because what I've been doing before hasn't been living. It's just been kind of floating. And
Mhm.
at that point, she realizes, oh, I want to like live a life and I want to like see nature and I want to like have a family, you know, like all of that is just in that one specific moment. So I think it's like the backbone of the whole movie.
Yeah. So like two kind of big little things I want to talk about this movie. First one is as someone that grew up on like Hayao Miyazaki movies, Studio Ghibli movies, one of their staples is like taking time for nature and their surroundings, whether it's Totoro or Kiki's, and that's something like I grew to love. Like when a film does that, and so there's the scene in Barbie where like she is just taking in this park in front of her at a bus stop, and she is I want to say feeling all these emotions, a couple going through a breakup, two people laughing, kids exploring, and just the ups and downs of life was just so beautiful. And a movie that throughout the rest of the runtime is pretty fast paced, car chase, getting out of bed songs by Lizzo kind of movie. I thought that was just a detail that I loved and was articulated perfectly. Second, I'm gonna before I say talk about the second part, I want to articulate with George. I am a man. I will never know what it feels like to be a woman. And I'm saying that how am I gonna say this? Like, is that the correct stance? Women telling women's stories are gonna tell, but a scene both times that just stuck out with me is when Barbie and Ken first roller skate onto Venice Beach, and the first thing she's hit with are these disgusting remarks about her body, and it to me it was just such an awful, like almost like gut wrenching. This call me being dramatic, I don't care. This is just what I'm feeling. Both times it was like sickening to my stomach. Honestly, maybe more than anything than Oppenheimer. Like again, being dramatic, I don't care. Um, I don't know if I just articulate because like I am I'm queer, so I've never had any like romance towards women or anything. I just see them as these like beautiful human beings who go through so much struggle and like just from like the people in my family and whatnot. And then like they have to deal with this crap. And like I've said before, like I'm never gonna understand. But if this movie and so many other movies by female filmmakers can make me like feel and have more empathy than than anything else before, I think it's the reason why I love this medium. I love art. Like every single one of those men have little dicks and they're dipshits. Uh, like what the actual heck? And I you hear this, and again going back to little details. Something that's always stuck out with me. Another scene is Ken is learning about the patriarchy, seeing everything, and he sees a group of businessmen, three of them talking, and then the female intern comes up, and he's like, "Nope." And then Ken copies it, and you know it's going to be your first sign of a snowball going downwards, and it's really disgusting. And I don't know, it just made me feel things I had to get out. And I'm so sorry for women. I of course can't apologize to all men, but yeah,
I
like
felt
it's
every single one of those.
yeah, it's awful. Men, do everything in your power to be better to women. Like I honestly genuinely like think they're just so amazing. I don't know why you would treat them as sex symbols, but that's a society existential thing. And like, oh my God, it's yeah, probably made me feel a lot.
The quote Roger Heffley, "I'm sorry, woman."
I think
Yeah.
that's why it's so important that movies like this exist, and movies by all diverse filmmakers, diverse authors, media by anybody who isn't
Mhm.
the typical straight white man. Obviously, your stories need to be shared too, but the more that we see protagonists and characters who are not what you as the viewer are used to, you start to empathize with their situation, understand what they're going through, and it teaches you to become a better person. I just think that's so important.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I mean that's the Ebert quote is the movies are a machine that create empathy, for other
Yeah.
people. Or even Atticus Finch in To Kill a Mockingbird when he says you don't know someone until you take a walk around their shoes for a little bit. I think that's what it's all about. And Barbie illustrates that perfectly. What's
Yes,
everyone's
no,
rating?
yeah. Sorry?
Oh, wait. Is there any other comments?
If
I could go on for ages about the movie, but
if I had to want like the smallest like thumbtack of a nitpick, and it even isn't even about the movie, it's more of me and my ideas. I would love to see a parallel world where this is like an actual full-on musical, like not just the I'm Just Ken, maybe like I don't know, a roller skate dance number with the Mattel CEOs, like actual like full-blown like musical numbers. I think would be something really cool to do
funny,
with this story in that world.
funny you mentioned that because watching the movie, I was like, I feel like they could bring this to Broadway.
yeah.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
could.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. I think it would totally work. I think it would totally work as a full-fledged musical. That's the vibe. It has that Little Shop of Horrors type of mentality. Like that's the humor. So I think it would work.
And I think music is so beautifully weaved in, not just musical numbers, but like there's so many songs by like big name artists that directly tie into the narrative, like the Lizzo
Yeah.
song. I love the Charlie XCX song and how
Yes. It's used so well in the chase sequence.
it's
Yes.
so and I love how there's like a pause in it where she goes to meet Ruth and then the song picks up again afterwards. It's like it's so interesting. The Tame Impala song, and then obviously, I mean, I think Billie Eilish's track is the highlight, and really encapsulates the meaning of the film, and it's so beautifully used over
It's
the
her best song.
montage.
It's
It
her
might
best
be.
song.
It's incredible. It's yeah.
So, what is everyone's rating for this movie? I said it right when we started talking about it. It's a 10 for me. It's a perfect movie.
Guys, Greta Gerwig just gets the female experience and she looks at everybody with so much love. I will always ascribe to her 10 out of 10, 11 out of 10 if I could.
Yeah, 15 out of 10.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
also going with a 10 on this one.
10.
Yeah, so I don't give tens out that often, but I'm giving like two tens out back to back. I just think these are both perfect films that are going to push the medium forward. It's an exciting time for movies, and these both are generating really important conversations about our world and in different ways. And I love Barbie, I love Oppenheimer, and I love film. So yeah.
Yeah.
Straight
It's
10 from all of us. I think that's. I know it's the first episode. It's probably the only time it's ever going to happen, though.
Yeah.
hey, when Challengers comes out in 2024, who knows? I'm
Yeah.
so upset. If we talk about that later on this episode, oh my god.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hey, maybe next week with Haunted Mansion, we might see another 10.
Yeah, I think that might be the next 10.
Yeah.
I
I
could
think so.
honestly see a world where Brett really loves the movie. Like,
And
it's
nobody
not
else.
far off possibility. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean Jared Leto's Hatbox Ghost, so I'm a little concerned. But other than that,
There's segments review had some points where I'm like, okay, this could work really well, but
yeah, I think there's an idea there. We'll see. We'll see. I'm hopefully seeing it tomorrow, so we'll see how that goes. It's just like it's my favorite Disney Parks attraction. I want them to make a really good movie off of it. I am concerned.
Brett, where do you stand on the song Grim Grinning Ghosts?
Solid.
Not to socialize.
Yeah, it's a good one. I
It's
mean,
not Halloween without it.
my favorite scene in the ride is the ballroom sequence. It's one of the best things anyone's ever made. But the Grim and Gross sequence is fun. It's good. Solid. I mean, we might as well like talk about that briefly. We're a little scared here.
Yeah.
So if you guys haven't heard, the SAG and the WGA are both on strike.
Writers Guild and Writers Guild. Yeah.
Yes.
Based.
Yeah, which
we stand with our comrade workers.
Yeah, look, I want to be clear. Whenever I say we're scared, and I say they're on strike. We're not saying that like, oh, they shouldn't be on strike. Like that's not like the point I'm making here.
Yes, very much in support of both strikes.
It's
Yes.
support of them. It is not in support of these terrible CEO and producers who are like, yeah, your reasonings for this is unreasonable as we take private jets to go talk about it and burn fossil fuels. Um, that's the issue. And I think the scary thing about it, and the thing that I don't get is, so this is potentially going to really put a wrench within the fall movie season. We'll see when it gets resolved, when that happens. There's been rumors of like The Color Purple and maybe potentially Dune 2 moving. I think The Color Purple should just move in general. I think it'd be a good idea for them at this point because they already have two solid contenders for picture. But that's a completely different discussion than this.
Yeah, that's a different podcast.
That's a different podcast. George runs it.
Mhm, yeah. Mhm.
Anyway,
Come follow me and you'll see
yeah.
a world of pure bullshit and memes.
I love that. Wait, can that be your new slogan?
Yeah, it
It's
should.
fantastic.
I'll put it on a shirt.
Yeah, you should. Anyways, so here's what I don't understand by this whole thing is the potential millions to even billions of dollars that it's going to be lost because of this. And producers still, because look, for me, I've come to the point where I understand that CEO and producers and these big Hollywood elites that are the ones that aren't wanting to give proper wages to their workers. They don't have hearts, they don't have souls. They're only looking at this as a business-like relationship, and these are their workhorses. I don't expect them to be like, oh man, they're starving, maybe we should pay them. No, that's not where they're at. It's not where their head is at. But for me, I'm going, you're not going to be able to live this rich and luxurious lifestyle the way that you have been if you're getting no money in. Now, these people are beyond rich to the point where they could survive off of their wealth for the rest of their lives and never work a day in their lives. I understand that. But these are also people who, again, fly private jets, eat at the fanciest restaurants, and live the rich life. And that will eventually get put on hold if the strike continues to happen. And so for me, there's this disconnect of like, so Barbie and Oppenheimer come out, and it is the fourth biggest grossing weekend of all time, and it's like the biggest grossing for movie theaters since Avengers Endgame. That's like 4 years ago. It's pretty much bringing movie theaters back. It's making people interested in movies again. These people were made by WGA and SAG members. This is the reason why these movies were made. They could not have been made by Bob Iger or David Schlashoff. Like, they're not making these movies. And I'm like, so there's such a big disconnect between the idea of the only reason these people have $35.9 million or whatever crazy amount of money that they make a year is because of people that they don't pay. And it's
yeah, 100%.
Yeah. It's maddening. It's enough to want to scream, especially for, I mean, I think all of us want to get into the industry in some way. It's a big reason for this podcast. And that's a very scary time for us to try to get in when people can't even afford rice-a-roni when they write The Bear. Like, it's ridiculous.
It's a lot. And I'm gonna echo, I'm scared, I'm existential. There is this great like little interview, I forgot her name, but it's the main actress from like Broad City. She kind of made this good point of kind of the same point you said, Brett. These billionaires, they don't walk among us, they don't sweat next to us. Their heads are so far in the clouds. I honestly just think of them like zombies because they're so I understand. They're probably not on the ground working. They just see dollar signs like normal, and it's so hard for them to understand. I'm scared that the Barbie Oppenheimer is like, we can ignore this for a few more weeks, right? Look, the years are gonna go. But then it's like Netflix, what are you going to tell your stockholders when it's been 5 years since Stranger Things, your biggest property that hasn't been filming? There will come a point where you have no content. You have to come to the table. Like, um, yeah, and it's awful and you get paid.
Yeah.
And then there's also like the problem of like just like should I feel bad like watching this? Because we all did give money Universal and Warner Brothers this weekend. Like, and I'm getting existential and like really I don't know what to do. But at the same time, I don't want to quit watching things for this entire strike because that's not my life,
So
you know?
here's
Like,
also here's all I'll say about that. Neither the SAG or WGA have called for a boycott of the industry because, like, yeah, they still
Well,
need something.
yeah, and at that point, if nobody saw Barbie and Oppenheimer this weekend, they could be like, "We see, this is why we shouldn't pay our writers. This is why we shouldn't pay our actors.
it goes
Because they're
both
not
ways.
making quality things that people want to go see." They can't make that point now because obviously there's stuff in theaters that people are interested in. That's a point against them at this point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then if you've known me from other podcasts and whatnot, I was a huge Luca Guadagnino Challengers fan, and I'm really struggling with the loss. Like me just being human, I'm struggling with the loss of it, not only moving, not only out of this year till April of 2024, which means like any Oscar prospects gone.
I mean,
Not necessarily
Anything
true anymore.
gone.
if like I mean, to be fair though, like based on the script I read, that's not an Oscar contender.
Yeah.
That's what everyone says. I was hoping at least a Zendaya because I feel like if that released in the fall and with her followers and whatnot, I think there could be a narrative where if good enough she could be a contender, at least her. I don't see that possible now with a freaking April release date, but oh gosh, yeah, it's rough. Yeah, and I need to talk about it and just like that was the of course of all the movies and on the fall slate that movie, it was that one.
Mhm.
So it sucks. It's awful. And but go SAG, go WGA. I love you
Mhm.
guys that are out picketing. I mean I'm in a small town, so I can't fly to be or drive to be with you in LA, but sending I support you guys wherever I can.
Mhm.
Keep this fight going. I try every day being an optimist. This has to end. There's no way in hell this doesn't last forever.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
eventually they'll win. It's a matter of time, but yeah.
Yeah.
Sadly, I don't really have much hope though, because a certain representative of AMPTP said, you know, what we want is for these writers and these actors to lose their mortgages. And we're not gonna go back to the negotiating table until they start losing their mortgages. And they absolutely are desperate. Which I mean, that's one representative, sure, but like, let's be honest, they all think like that.
It-
That's what they want. That's what they all want.
Yeah, but that's not
so,
realistically going to happen.
yeah, yeah. Are they gonna like?
I don't think it's
I'm
gonna.
not trying to
I don't.
fight with you, but like, do you think that representative is gonna check random WG writer Fuller House? Oh, I can't wait to see if she lost her mortgage. Not yet.
I don't
So
think they're
time.
going to. To be clear, like I don't think that's actually what would happen. But like this is the mentality that they're working with. It's more about the mentality than the actual practicality of what they're saying.
Yeah, but and again, like I said in my opening when we started talking about this, I don't think these people have morals. So I always want to put
They
this.
don't. No, they
They
fucking
don't.
don't.
They don't.
Billionaires are not your friends. Just
But
letting you guys know
they
that.
care about money. When the money stops coming in, they're going to want to start negotiating because they're going to want more money again. And I know, like,
Yeah.
well, they have plenty of money, and I'm like, well, they still continue to want to have plenty of money. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
So
It's greed.
it's greed. And so greed's what is like is going to eventually push this forward, and that sucks, but that's exactly how it's going to happen.
100%.
Yeah.
I
And I
do.
mean, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go.
Oh, these people, they're not your friends. Billionaires are not your friends. When you get fucking Bob, like as Brett said earlier, when fucking Bob Iger He's going out there on his private jet, being like, "Yeah, these people are unreasonable." You know what's unreasonable is you get to have a fucking yacht in the middle of like Hawaii or something. That's like millions of dollars, and these writers and actors who are making the money for you can barely pay your rent. Like I think, like there was a story that I learned about. I think it was Sydney Sweeney, who was living in the projects while she was working on Euphoria.
Wow.
Like, are you like you're gonna let your actors live like that while you get to live on a luxury yacht? Like, no, fuck you. That is like that is actually like shitty behavior. And I mean, look, let's be realistic. These guys do not want to bend the knee. They're going to have to at some point, but they're going to hold out as long as they want. And honestly, like I've said this to you guys before. I mean, I'm kind of a political junkie, so I think of things in like a very like policy, like politically oriented way. I think what something I don't know that this would work full stop, like immediately, but I still think it should be done. Like I think Biden or someone in his administration needs to come out and say to the producers, you need to give WGA and SAG everything they want, or else we're going to cut your federal contract. Like it's going to be gone. Like maybe at that point they would be like, oh, okay, maybe we need to start paying up. I don't know that it would work 100%, but I think they should just try it anyway, because like these people need to be fucking paid.
I mean, to put it in perspective for you, a typical CEO of a company gets paid $74,000 a day. That's about a little more than what a Hollywood writer gets paid a year. It's a day. The inequality, and look, I'm coming from the perspective of I understand that if you have a higher position and that you could potentially get paid more money, that's totally fine. I don't subscribe to the idea of like, oh, McDonald's workers should work the same as CEOs. But there's also like
I don't either.
I also believe that every job is important. Even if it's a small job, quote unquote. I don't think there are small jobs, but I understand some jobs should be paid better than other jobs. That being said, it is these jobs being all the way up here and then these jobs being all the way down here. If we just met a little bit closer to the middle, we're fine. I think that's the issue. It's just
it's like this veneer of a meritocracy. We don't have a fucking meritocracy. Like if that were true, then there wouldn't be a fucking strike going on, would there?
I have a very interesting question for Eden and Tristan, who are both Canadian. What do they believe?
I was gonna say after I made a point to open up to these two, so I feel like they to let them talk about it.
I'm very much I mean, I'm going into film distribution, so I'm not gonna like fully, jump in on it, but it's a different conversation in Canada for sure, but at the same time, like, obviously I understand. To a point, yeah, only to a point. But yeah, I'm very much in support of the strike, and I hope that the writers and the actors are able to get what they're looking for.
Listen, I have worked a little bit in distribution. I've been a PA on a set, and I'm a pre-Writers Guild aspirant screenwriter. I've pretty much seen all the sides of the industry that are in play right now, except for the acting side. Very much in support of the unions. I don't know. I've read the SAG contracts, I've read the Writers Guild contracts, and I just hope that everyone can get everything figured out, because here in Canada, we're not having the same effects that you guys have in the States. Most productions have still been shut down, either because they use Writers Guild writers. When I was working on my Apple TV Plus show last year, it was written in LA and then brought up to Toronto to film. So that does happen a lot here. Or because SAG actors, which is the same sort of story. So I believe it was all the productions save half a dozen shut down, and then even more shut down this week. I am a member of IATSE, which is one of the film unions in Toronto. So very pro-union over here. And yeah, we're just sending love from Canada. Wish we could be on the picket lines with you in LA, and really just hoping that you can come to a fair conclusion, because writers, actors, you deserve everything you're asking for. So we stand with you.
Well, it's interesting because and I'm sure a lot of you know if you follow me, I work at Walt Disney World, and we had this exact same thing happen 2 or 3 months ago, where because we were getting paid 15 an hour, and we'll say Florida's a real expensive place to live, and so it was a real struggle for a lot of us, and they union fought tooth and nail. Let's say they fought. They were like, no, you're gonna lose your people if you continue to have this, because rent's going so much up in Florida. So they eventually succeeded on 17 an hour, which I mean you can argue is probably not enough, but still I've seen it personally work. I've seen it with my eyes work. I've high-fived the union before, I really have. So hopefully we get a good result soon. That being said, it didn't affect as much as we thought it would TIFF. So I think we should talk about a couple of the titles at TIFF. Number one.
Can I say one more thing about the strike before? I just want to say another kind of bright spot is apparently, everyone's favorite little indie company, A24, has agreed to everything to SAG.
Everything.
Every
single thing.
So they are
comrades.
And so they are allowed to do their projects and kind of go normally. I can tell you, I follow Jacob Elordi, who is in A24's Priscilla, as Elvis Presley. When he posted on his Instagram, oh, it's premiering at New York and other festival, Venice.
Venice, yeah.
I sent that in the group chat. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is he doing? Because actors can't promote. And then George is like, oh, well, it's A24. He's a part of it. He can do whatever he wants. So I'm like, so just a little congrats to A24. And that's our little beacon of hope that at least one studio is doing everything okay. Maybe that'll allow the other studios to start getting a little jealous and be like, fine, I want to play with A24.
Is it only A24? I'm surprised Focus didn't go in on that, and some of the others more.
I think it's because Focus is owned by Universal, so maybe it's a two-part deal, whereas Searchlight is owned by Disney and A24 is just A24.
How about Neon?
Maybe I've only heard
I'm
A24
not sure about
from
Neon.
my perspective.
I guess Neon's more international, so that's.
I would say a lot of Neon titles are coming to TIFF, so good sign. Yeah, it's a good sign.
And Ferrari is Neon, and that's going to Venice.
Venice, yeah.
Can you imagine Jacob Elordi getting Oscar nom just because he could promote this fall as Elvis, or I forgot her name, but you know her name.
Haley Spain,
yeah.
Springfield, Missouri represent. Let's go.
That would be such a cool story.
Tyler knows her.
Yeah, we're 1 degree removed from Kaylee Spaney. So, TIFF, ladies and gentlemen,
and Venice
announced their lineups. So, Fall Movie Festival season is upon us, and The Holdovers is going to be the best movie ever made.
I will say we're going shameless plug. We're going to talk about this on the Oscars podcast coming up soon. So I'm going to save, I think, most of my talk about that stuff for that episode.
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
I will say this though, The Killer making a competition slot at Venice. That's interesting because Fincher usually does not do film festivals. The last time he had a competition slot at a film festival was Zodiac when it went to Cannes, and that was after the movie came out in the US. So I don't know. He's cooking something here.
Yeah. So I think the interesting thing about the TIFF lineup this year was, again, they had a struggle. They had the issue, which was the writer's strike and the SAG strike. I still got together a really interesting eclectic group of films. There's no big Dune 2 or Color Purple premiere like they usually do, but I was ultimately surprised by like all of the movies that they're selling there, including
Oh
like
yeah,
Richard
this
Linklater's new film. Like I don't think anyone had that on their radar to be playing at TIFF, and
I thought it was gonna go to Cannes at the beginning of the year.
yeah, and I think we'll finally get to see Next Goal Wins.
Yeah.
Guess that movie
Yeah.
is
Oh
real.
man.
Um,
All right. You still have
my,
something to say?
my question. This is going to also be a question for Tristan and Eden because they've been to TIFF before, going for the first time to see your friends. Yay! Um, do you think like any of them are actually going to be hard to get into this year? Because that's a very curious question to me.
He and I were actually talking about this a couple days ago.
Yeah.
Um, Unlikely. I don't think I think the biggest issue is usually when there's something that has huge public draw. Um, so something along the lines of the Fablemans last year, where everybody knew that Steven Spielberg would be coming to TIFF for the first time, or Glass Onion, which is coming off of the hotly anticipated and well-loved Knives Out. Those were the two. Brendan Fraser's The Whale also was the third one that was almost impossible to get into, based off of, Brendan Fraser's comeback. Also because they only programmed it once, but that's a whole other issue.
Yeesh.
I don't think that there are any titles in the competition this year that have that same draw to a public, not necessarily cinephile audience.
Yes.
I also think that the fact that there's going to be smaller red carpets with lesser A-list stars and the knowledge that those stars will not be in the theater with the audience during the premiere, may also lower the interest. So I don't know. There might end up being a movie or two that is tougher to get into, but I don't think any are going to sell out in minutes the way that Fablemans or Glass Onion did last year.
Interesting.
The thing with TIFF is it's so drawn. I mean, I did a internship there a couple years ago, and the thing that they pride themselves on is being an audience run festival and getting the stars and not just the films, but the experience of TIFF, like everything outside of the films. And because that's going to be limited this year, I feel like there's not really going to be any film that's going to be that hard to get into. And I don't think it's going to have the same draw as it has in previous years, especially last year when you got Taylor Swift going to do a talk and that sort of thing. I think where the ones that are going to be difficult to get into are more going to be like the in conversation withs, which usually they'll get a big actor or director or someone in the industry to do a conversation. They did Viola Davis last year, Taylor
Damien
Swift,
Chazelle.
Damien Chazelle, yeah.
My favorite.
I think we could see. Honestly, I think that's where TIFF is going to try and get a lot of these big names. So I think we could maybe see Martin Scorsese come do a talk. Because they don't have to necessarily be related to a film that's playing at the festival. I'm sure they're going to try and get Christopher Nolan. So I think those are going to be the events that are harder to get into, whereas the movies, and I think especially with something like The Holdovers, which is trying to win the audience award, they're going to try and screen that as much as possible. And they're going to screen it in the biggest theaters, the Roy Thompson Hall, and, which fits over like 1,000 people. Same with the Princess of Wales. So movies like that, I don't think are going to be that difficult to see.
Nice.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So we're excited for TIFF. We're so glad that it's still happening.
Yeah.
We're
In
so
Venice
glad-
too.
In Venice. And
Stuff
I
I
know,
hope
poor
of
things.
along. Yeah, poor thing. Do you
Poor
think?
things, yeah.
I mean,
I just want to say,
oh,
just as an observation, I'm a big Apple guy, I think, because I feel like that is the place for just original modern day storytelling. I mean, I can do a whole rant, but it's like they started from only 4 shows and they're growing all this just original content, not relying on a Disney library or a Netflix like a library. And so I just think it's just such a cool place for original stories. And so they get Florence Sun and Fingernails at TIFF this year. Florence Sun, I think, was such a great surprise because I assumed they were going to play it like their other 2 audience award Sundance pleasers, Cha Cha Real Smooth and Coda, where they released it in like late summer. But it's going to TIFF and it's coming out like in September in the fall season. So to me, that signals
The
something
greatest
super,
beer run
super,
ever
super,
slot.
super, super good. That's true. Oh, that's true. And nobody saw that movie. This is Florence Son. This is the guy, the king of Sing Street. So we gotta think a little outside the box here. Um, oh my gosh, Oscar for Best Original Song. Would love to be in that world.
Maybe they will amend their sins for snubbing Drive It Like You Stole It, which I might argue should have won Best Song that year. I know that
And
was
then
La La Land year song.
and
I
then
love La
like
La Land, don't get me wrong, but like goodness. Anyways, continue.
and the hype from Sundance for Florence Son is like it's feel good. The music's a 10 out of 10. That's all you need to get me to watch it, you know? And
It's a
so I'm
Jared
hyped
Core
about
movie for
that.
sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's also a Brett and Tristan core movie. I mean, you guys are the champion Sing Street
Yeah.
fighters. So I don't see a world where you guys don't love it if you guys see it at TIFF. And then Fingernails is about like technology and like love and like our reliance about technology. Like technology saying like, oh, this is your soulmate, and kind of just fate having other plans. I think it's gonna break a lot of hearts. But it's also Jesse Buckley, Jeremy Allen White, and Riz Ahmed, some of their champions. And then if I were to pick like one more movie to highlight, I feel like is going under the radar, but I can totally see it blowing up is a movie called Pain Hustlers. It's a Netflix movie with Emily Blunt and Chris Evans. And Emily Blunt is like this single mom who falls into like a scheme with Chris Evans selling prescription drugs. Could be The Good Nurse like last year, but I could see a formula with the cast being something that like surprise, you got a contender Netflix, hip hip
David
hooray,
Yates directed it, so I don't know what that tells you.
Harry Potter person.
Yeah. Interesting. Interesting.
I mean, he's made some great Harry Potter, so you never
He's also
know.
made Fantastic Beasts 1, 2, and 3.
And
Yeah,
Tarzan.
And Tarzan, yeah.
Mhm.
What is everyone's like most anticipated time? Wait, also, question. Did I dream this or did Saltburn get added to TIFF?
Uh,
Kind of,
there
yeah.
there's an
Yeah.
interview with a guy from Venice that said that
the Venice programmer.
they screened it in late July, but Amazon said, I know we screened it for you. We're going to take it to TIFF and Telluride. And he said that in an interview, like, oh, it's going to go to TIFF and Telluride. So
It was not announced for Toronto.
But they still
Yeah.
don't have an opening night, so
Well, that's rumored to be How Do You Live, which I'm not calling it by the American title because that title is stupid as hell. I'm still excited for the movie, but Jesus Christ.
I don't think it would be How Do You Live.
Well, I
Definitely
mean
not an opening.
that's what apparently very credible people are saying that.
I kind of think it could be, to be honest. If they want to
I mean, maybe
Spielberg
it's
appeal,
too
it would be Miyazaki.
maybe it's too good to be the opening night because they did have Dear Evan Hansen as the opening night film.
Yeah,
So.
it feels more like Saturday night premiere to me than it does opening night.
Yeah, I mean,
and-
like you had Dear Evan Hansen.
Yeah,
was
this
it
might be
last
too
year?
much.
Like,
to be fair,
Last year was
it's
The
like
Swimmers.
that's what I was going to say, like a
Dear
Netflix movie that not a lot of people saw.
I
Feel
did see it. It
bad.
was pretty good.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Dear Evan Hansen was definitely like a mainstream appeal. It was a broad appeal.
Yeah.
How Do You Live
Yeah.
would be there too. People love Miyazaki. You know what I mean? Like people would rush out to see that. That was the opening night.
Yeah.
Also, I think with Dear Evan Hansen, that was like the year after COVID, so they probably went with the most like mainstream, like, "Hey guys, come back to TIFF with."
Yeah,
Dear Evan Hansen.
I guess so.
I think How Do You Live could definitely be there, but I think it's more likely to be in the master's program.
I
Which is
have
like, yeah.
Well, I'm just telling what very credible people are apparently saying. Apparently, these are very credible people saying How Do You Live is going to open TIFF.
And if that happens, I'm going to vomit.
Yeah.
I want to say
Here's the thing. Here's the thing about Saltburn, though. That would be a really weird late announcement to TIFF because, like, in the few years I've been following TIFF, I've never been. I'm good. I can't go this year. I'm trying to go to Sundance this year. For TIFF, it's like, usually the late editions are like shit from like not as well known filmmakers. Like like unless it's like a Spencer, which is like a special event, or maybe Dune. Well, no, Dune was one of the first ones announced actually. Like if it's like a Spencer where it's like a late edition, like they might not have known it was gonna go when they added it, right? But like it's usually something that's kind of small, like After Sun was a late edition last year, for example. And I think no, I don't think Close played actually. I think like the Inspection was a late announcement. Saltburn seems like a really a little bit too high profile to be a late announcement because like I mean Emerald Fennell, she just won an Oscar for her last film. Its main star Barry Keoghan was just Oscar nominated for his last film, and you've got Jacob Elordi who's on Euphoria, you've got Rosamund Pike who has been Oscar nominated, Richard E. Grant has been Oscar nominated. Carey Mulligan is in it, it's Amazon. Like it seems a bit too high profile to be a late edition to TIFF unless it's like a really special event.
Yeah, well, do you think that like maybe it's just a related addition to TIFF because of the SAG stuff that's going on with the strikes? And
See,
maybe negotiating.
I don't know if it's a struck project though, because like most of the actors in it are SAG people and it's Amazon, but like I'm pretty sure it's an entirely UK production. Like I think all or most of the actors are UK people, and I mean obviously Emerald Fennell was British, and
Midge.
And then
oh yeah, that's right, she's Midge in Barbie. I forgot about that. It might be like an equity project and not a SAG project, so I don't know.
yeah, because
if it is a late addition to TIFF, then I don't know what's happening.
Because my question is too, like, it's Amazon, and Challengers is also Amazon MGM, and I mean, you could argue Saltburn also has a big cast that could help do promoting, but I don't know why they're letting that one stay this year. Maybe they just think Zendaya is bigger than anyone in Saltburn, so they would really need her help. I don't know, like that's confusing to me. Like they're like, oh, Saltburn could stay this year, but we need Zendaya for next year.
I don't know.
Maxine, I think, could end up being an addition to TIFF as well.
And I remember talking to
Depends on if it's
Tristan,
finished.
Yeah.
Like Exorcist could totally Five Nights at Freddy maybe, but I feel like Exorcist is more
that'd be
of a
so
Midnight
fun.
Madness.
Oh my gosh. Wait, if Five Nights at Freddy's happens, we have to go see that, right?
Yeah, we'll do it.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Peter Malark is in that movie, so it's gonna be a masterpiece, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Imagine Five Nights at Freddy's ends up being like a masterpiece for no reason. And so for Best Picture, we have Barbie and Five Nights at Freddy's.
Oh my fucking god.
That'd be it. That'd be the end of the world. That's what we know it. Anyways,
yeah.
I think we have talked plenty today. This has been a good first episode. I think there's a lot.
I really like it. I really like the format.
Yeah, this is nice. This is a good vibe. I'll have everyone plug their stuff. So Jared, where can people find you?
You can find me on Letterboxd at JFilmLover20. I believe that is also, and then I go by JMovieLover on Instagram, where I post stuff about Apple and TV and movies. Yeah.
And then Eden, where can people find you?
Sure, I'm pretty sure my Letterboxd is EP_films. So you can find me there, post reviews. Very fun. Would love some friends on Letterboxd.
Tristan E. Tristano, where can people find you?
You can also find me on Letterboxd at Tristan French. I also write for Keith Loves Movies, so you can find my writing there.
And George, where can people find you?
I have a Letterboxd account, George A. Ehret. If you want, I have a Threads account that I use like occasionally to post bullshit. If you want to follow me there, George Alex Ehret. Yeah, that's my Instagram handle too.
Yeah, and I'm Brett. You can find me at Skipper_Scott on Instagram, on Letterboxd, most places. Even YouTube now. There's going to be some videos posted to that channel soon. And this is a Workshopping Humanity podcast. Rebranded as the Toy Box podcast, back in the day. So you should totally go follow that website. The website's still under toybox.com, so you just go there. you can see our website where there's going to be different articles and reviews posted and all that fun stuff. And make sure to subscribe for more. I think this will be a reoccurring thing. So thanks everyone for being on, and we'll see you guys next time.